most of you have heard us talk about our granddaughter Katie. And I was just thinking, she just turned 20 on the 3rd. And I was thinking, we were all here having graduation from Hillside Christian Academy, and I couldn't keep my mind on what was going because Linnell was in the NOB, and you were being born. And so she's just precious. And anyway, her desire to go to Youth with a Mission, and even though it got interrupted with the COVID, she hung in there and went back for her 2nd semester this last January. And anyway, God is using her, and He's called her to go on staff with YWAM. And so, as she shares, if God lays it on your heart, she has to raise her own support for this because she has her room and her board and everything. And so, anyway, if the Lord lays it on your heart to help her some, why, we just encourage you to touch base with her, or we'll figure it out. And so, anyway, so this is Katie Day.
Is my close enough? Can y'all hear me? Is it good? I'll just hold it. In case I move around a little bit, I'll stay a little consistent. But, so, hi. As you know, I'm Katie Day. Galen and Rodella are my grandparents. And I just got back from Lebanon about a month ago with Youth with a Mission. So, for those of you who don't really know that much about YWAM, I do have a little video. It's a couple years old, but it still kind of explains the numbers. Just might be different now versus then, but it'll help explain who YWAM is and what their mission is and everything. So, yeah.
So what is Youth with a Mission? Youth with a Mission, or YWAM, is a global movement of Christians dedicated to knowing God and making God known. YWAM started in 1960 as a way to get young people involved in missions. We still do that today, but we're involved in every kind of outreach, every kind of ministry that you can imagine. We currently have over 18,000 staff, with locations in over 180 countries. YWAM's many ministries fit into 3 major categories: evangelism, training, and mercy ministries. We do evangelism because we believe that everyone in the world has the right to hear the message of Jesus. We do training to equip people to use their unique calling to do that. And everyone in Youth with a Mission does an intensive half-year discipleship course called the Discipleship Training School. Our third focus is mercy ministries, where our staff are giving hope to the poor, sick, and those suffering from injustice. YWAM has a place for everyone and endless opportunities. You can find out more about what we're doing and ways to get involved at our website.
So yeah, that's kind of an overview of YWAM. So before I get into all the crazy things that God did while we were in Lebanon, I'm going to kind of start with a bit of my testimony and how God kind of changed my life over the past 2 years and just my experience with YWAM as a whole. So by the time I graduated, okay, I'll get closer to it. There we go. Is that better? Okay. So by the time I graduated high school, I was the type of person that was fine and happy on the outside, but I was kind of dying on the inside. So I was having frequent anxiety attacks. I was anxious over just about everything. I was depressed. I didn't allow myself to feel or really cry or anything, so I had numbed myself really into like an empty shell of a person to a degree. I hated myself. I hated pretty much everyone around me. I was just angry at the world. I wanted to die. I was pretty tired of life, and I felt like I had no purpose or direction or really any giftings or anything like that. And I was kind of giving up on God. I was at the point where I felt like I was chasing after God, but He was running away from me. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm over it. Why am I putting in so much effort for something that I feel like I'm not getting anywhere? I'm just treading water. And so at that point, I knew I was going to go to YWAM. I really didn't really want to, but I knew that I didn't know what I was going to do if I went to college, so I would just be wasting my time there, and I really wouldn't be getting anywhere, so I was like, okay, I'll go. And that's where God really met me and changed my entire life. And I don't want to like sound like a walking advertisement for YWAM, because I believe that God, if you give him a little bit, if you go where you think you're going to grow, he'll take that and you'll be able to meet him in ways that you wouldn't anywhere else. You just got to give him a little bit and he'll take control. But for me, YWAM and my DTS was that place where I was going to get closer to God and where I was really going to change the most. And so kind of an overview of what your discipleship training school, it's your DTS. It's the first school with YWAM, and then there's a second school, which is School of Evangelism, that isn't at every campus, but YWAM Tyler does offer it. So in the schools, you have a 3-month lecture phase and then a 2-month outreach phase. So the 3-month lecture phase, you're going to classes every day, and you're learning about God. Each week is a different topic, so you can you get through different aspects of God and having a relationship with him and getting healing and everything. And so when I went, some of the things that really that I really learned and picked up was God's nurturing and loving character, and the importance of forgiving myself, not just others, because that's a big thing. That's where I found a lot of my anxiety was coming from. And just how he speaks and how he speaks to me specifically. I had gone through this thing, a lot of my struggle with my relationship with God prior to my DTS. I felt like I couldn't hear God. I was so angry. I felt like he was talking to everyone else but me, and I was just kind of there and he was ignoring me. I was listening and waiting for this audible voice, and I learned that's not exactly how God speaks to everybody. He speaks to everybody in different ways, and that wasn't something that I had come to recognize. And so through my DTS, I was learning how he speaks to me specifically and how to recognize his voice, and it's something that I'm still growing in, but it's compared to 2 years ago, it's a complete 180, which is awesome. And one night at Dwell, and Dwell is a night that YWAM has, I believe it's like once a month or so, and it's like a 2-hour worship night, and it's just where all the staff and students come and just forget everything else that's going on, and we just focus on God. And so I was there at that point. I was, pretty frustrated. I was going through, realizing all these things, all these hurts that I had that I just ignored and buried, and realizing these things I knew I needed to change. And I wasn't, it hurts to change things. It hurts to, move out of the constant cycle of just going through the motions. And so a girl, she was a leader. She came. I had never really talked to her before. She didn't really know who I was. And she came and she gave me a word that God had given her for me. And I just started sobbing. I cried on her shoulder for like 30 minutes, and I did not know this girl. And that night, it was weird. I don't know how to explain what happened, but it just clicked with me that God was my father, and that was something that I never really kind of figured how to put the pieces together, and that he wanted me, which was something that I had always struggled with. I realized when I had my first boyfriend that I didn't understand why anybody would want me. And I don't know where that came from, but it was just something that I just, it was something that I had internalized, that there was no reason why anybody would want me. And so after that night, it was kind of a pivotal point in my DTS. And so throughout the whole DTS, because with some people it's an overnight thing depending on what you're dealing with, but for most people that's not the case. It's a gradual thing that you have to work and walk out with God. And so he was really working with me on some heart wounds that I had that I just ignored and buried, and really worked on softening my heart to where I could, act and be the person I was created to be. And now, looking back, I'm in a place where I never thought that I would be able to get to. Back then, I thought I was in a deep hole that I would never climb out of, and that's how I thought it was going to be. And so, looking back, I'm kind of the kind of Christian that I used to think was a little bit weird, and I find myself changing into this person that I always used to be like, what's wrong with them? So it's a really cool thing to see, and just to experience. And looking back, I'm like, who is that? So for the 2 months that concluded my DTS, we went to Brazil, which was amazing. If you want to know more, you can find my Facebook. I was putting weekly updates on like what we were doing and how the Lord was moving through our trip and everything. You don't have to scroll very far. I'm not that up with Facebook as some people are. So if that's something you're interested in, learning more about our time there, that would be the best place to go. Or you could just ask me after. I'm open to talking to any of you guys. But we got back just in time. We got back February of 2020 at the end, so just in time for the world to shut down completely with COVID. And so at that point, I knew God was calling me back to do my second school, my school of evangelism, and it was something I really wanted to do. But with life being crazy and with COVID and everything, I ended up not getting to go back for a full year. And so through that year, we all struggled through that. That was a hot mess of a year. But when I did officially get to go back, I was with a whole new group of staff, all new students. I was a new person in this group of these people that had just gone through the 5 months being together 24/7, and I was just this random person. So I was starting over all over again. But it ended up being the biggest blessing. So our team. In my school, there were about 20 of us, and with COVID, the DTS at that time that they were running, they went during the year that I was off. All the schools were kind of a little mixed up a little bit because there weren't as many people, and so they just combined some of the schools. So in my SOE, we had 2 families that had 2 younger children each, and then we had a couple people that were in their 60s. And I was actually the youngest, and in my school I was about the average age, but I was the youngest in this new school. But everybody was so different, and we all came from different backgrounds, different places in life, but it just worked great. It was crazy to see how everybody from different walks of life, completely different points in life, we could all just come together and work so well and get along so well, which was really cool. So on the 3 months that we were at the base, we were going deeper. The way that a lot of people will explain a DTS and your SOE, which is probably the best way to explain it that I know, is your DTS is your phase 1, so you're getting closer to God, you're getting healing, and you're learning about God in ways that you never would think that God would be and everything. And then your SOE is part 2, so it just builds up on that. And so you'll kind of go through some of maybe the same topics, but it just keeps building, so you get more revelation, and then you're also learning best ways to communicate with people and about evangelism and how that looks in different settings. And so after the 3 months, then we were off to Lebanon, and which was crazy to think that we even got there because COVID is so there were travel restrictions and everything. But we ended up landing there, and we were stuck there for about a week in quarantine where we couldn't really do anything, which was, annoying. But because we had landed and we were all ready to go and ready to go do whatever the different ministry opportunities that we were going to be able to do. But that first week really gave us an opportunity to just pray over our time there and over the country and over the ministries that we were going to be doing and kind of getting a game plan. And it also gave some of our team members the opportunity to get to know some of the people. We were staying in an apartment building, and so we were able to get to know some of the families and the kids in those homes, but we probably wouldn't have been able to get that initial contact with if we weren't stuck in that quarantine period. So with the amount of people that we had on our team, we were able to do quite a few different ministry things, which is really awesome. We were able to branch out a lot more than we would have if our team was 10 people, but since it was over 20, we were able to spread out and do quite a lot. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break down the different ministries that we did and kind of explain what we did and how God moved. So the first big ministry that we did this throughout the entire time we were there, was food distribution. So we had a fund that, it was a team fund that we were doing as we were fundraising just for us to go, but we had this fund that we were getting money in, and I think we got about $3,600 or so just to put into buying food for these families, because if you don't know, Lebanon is currently in an economic crisis, and they have been for a couple of years. And so food is, everybody's struggling. There's a lot of people without jobs, and with COVID, it just made it a whole lot worse. And so through food distribution, we were able to bless people with food and just sit down and listen to them, hear their stories. And it was just crazy to see God move through his provision and give hope to these people that had kind of lost it, because they've been in this cycle for a while of just everything's kind of fallen apart a little bit. And Yeah, what didn't used to be like that. A little fun fact, Lebanon used to be like the Paris of the Middle East. And so now it is not like that at all. Everybody's struggling, everybody's hurting. And with COVID, like everybody else, it just makes it a little bit worse. So that was just a really cool experience. We got to go, we were doing a couple families a day, and then at the end there, just so we could like hurry up and get everything else done, we didn't anticipate the week that we would be in quarantine, so we lost a couple days, so we were doing like 8 families a day. So they were, shorter visits, but they were still impactful, and we got to like just sit and fellowship with these people. Another thing we did, we taught English to these kids in Beirut through our main contact there. He had a ministry called Play for Peace, and so through his ministry, they connect with these with neighborhood kids in the city through soccer, which is huge there. Everybody plays soccer. And so they were able to connect with these kids through soccer and stuff like that. But with COVID, being a little bit more strict in the big city, we were mainly, the only thing we were really able to do to help that ministry was teach English, which was still really impactful. We were doing 2 different groups, like an older group and then a younger group. So we were able to kind of teach the best we could with the time that we had. The next ministry that we were involved in, which was the one that I was most involved in, I went to this one more days than not, is Kids Alive. And so this ministry is really, really cool. They provide for Syrian Muslim refugees and Gypsy children. So these kids will really, in Lebanon, the culture there is very different. So the Lebanese hate the Syrians hate the Lebanese, but Lebanon is such a melting pot. It's where a lot of people from different countries, like many Syrians, come to escape war. And so there's a bunch of people from all different backgrounds and places in the Middle East, all in Lebanon. And so they kind of blame each other for each other's hardship. And so there's a bit of racism there with how they treat each other. There's some places where if you're Syrian, you won't be served, you won't be able to step foot on that property. So it's a really important ministry that they have there, and so they're able to provide for these kids. And so while we were there, we worked with refugee girls from Syria. They were all Muslim, and had all come, through their childhood, and they were living in these kind of tents in these villages. And so at any point, the government could come, because it was government land, so the government could come and tear down their houses and take their land back. And then these people would have no place to go. And that actually happened with one of the leaders there. She had aged out of the group, and so now she was helping teach these girls. And her home had gotten destroyed by the government, because they can just go in. It's their property, so they can really do whatever they want. And so she was in the point where her and her family were looking for a home. And but yeah, so through our time there, the ministry gives them the opportunity to learn English and read and write Arabic and some basic math, computer life skills, and then also they showed Bible. So it was a really cool experience, and these girls, they often are married off by 14, so they don't get an education. It's not seen as valued or important or anything, because they need to learn how to be a housewife and how to be a good wife for their husband that they're going to have at a pretty young age. And so this ministry really just gives these girls a chance to learn and kind of, get the chance to do things and learn things that they wouldn't have otherwise. And what's really cool is they also have this jewelry program for the girls that age out. So as a way for them to make money, they create this beautiful jewelry. And if any of you guys are interested in looking at it, it's really not that expensive, and it's really beautiful, handmade jewelry. And you can order it online. I will find the website and I will share it, and then maybe if you guys are interested, you can look at it. But the girls that we worked with were age range about 9 to 16, and they gave us complete free reign, so we were able to do and teach whatever we wanted. The only thing they said is that on Fridays they wanted it to be a fun day, because these girls, when they're home, they're doing housework and stuff, so we wanted them to be able to be kids again. And so a typical day would look like we would teach English for about an hour or so, and then depending on the day, we would have computer classes. Different people from our group that would come on certain days were better at teaching these computer skills than some of the rest of us were. So when they were there, we would do some basic computer things, playing with paint, and just learning how to get on the internet, look for Google pictures and stuff like that. And then we would do a Bible story or a biblical lesson, some sort of thing. For example, we would do, one of them we did was about identity. And so at this age, especially for girls, it's when you start to really kind of focus on what other people see you as and how other people are perceiving you. And so we did this lesson with the girls about identity and how it's important to focus on what God says about you and not about what others say about you, or how you see yourself, because that's a lot of times that's not reality. And so it was really cool to just see God work and kind of change the perception as we would tell stories and be like, did you know that God speaks to us in different ways, and he loves you, he sees you beautiful no matter what anybody else says or thinks. And so it was cool to see the wheels turning in their heads as they were kind of like realizing that God is a little bit different than how they're taught at home, which was really, really cool. And it was awesome to like be able to build these relationships with these girls, and even the staff. We were able to go out and eat with the staff there and just hang out with them, and it was really awesome. And the last and probably the most impactful ministry that we did while we were there was Kids Club. So we taught kids and like neighbors, so the kids that were in the buildings around us and like in our apartment building, and then their friends and family or whoever, they would come. We would teach them English, music, some moral lessons, which ended up turning into biblical lessons. We were able to connect it, but we had to get permission from their parents first because we wanted to keep them coming, like no matter what. And there's a certain way that when ministering to Muslims, all these kids came from Muslim families from Syria. And so when it comes to like ministering to Muslims, you can't go about it the way that you would like just a normal person, because the Bible and the Quran, they're pretty similar. You can see where Muhammad took the Bible and twisted it to fit his narrative and to twist and fit what he wanted people to believe. So like if you tell them about Jesus, they believe in Jesus. They think he's a respected prophet. They respect him a lot. But when you say that Jesus is the Son of God, the way that the Quran teaches them is like God came down from heaven, had sex with Mary, and then that's how Jesus was born. Which is like just a twisted way. That's just how Muhammad wrote the Quran to bring glory to himself, basically. And so you have to find like the baseline things that you have in common, and then through how you act and stuff like that, you're able to kind of shift their view a little bit and like share when it's appropriate about Jesus and where it's going to be safe for everybody there and where they're going to be able to receive it the most. Because you don't want to just go off on a tangent and then they'll never talk to you again, and it's really through relationship that you can see breakthrough with Muslims, which is a really important thing for us to learn. And so when we were teaching these kids, we were making sure that we started with like just moral lessons that were in the Bible, but we didn't really connect it directly. And then towards the end, we actually got permission. The parents said that, yeah, you can teach my kids about the Bible and about Jesus. And so it was like a really big deal that we were able to do that. And so yeah, through us loving on their kids, we would have them, it was twice a day that they would come, and different groups would cycle through, like different team members. We all got like a chance to do each ministry. We all like were there a little bit. But yeah, through these parents watching us like play with their kids and love on them, it got to where they were inviting us into their homes for like tea or iftar, which if you don't know, when we were there during Ramadan, which is the holiest month for Muslims. And so iftar is at sunset is where they break their fast. They fast all day, and then at sunset they can finally eat. And so we were invited to their big dinners, and then they basically party all night. They dance, they eat, they just have fun all night, and then a lot of them like will sleep during the day. But so we were getting invited, like different people from our team were getting invited for iftar and like just invited in their homes, which we came to find out that's a pretty big deal, because it shows like their trust with us and that they're open to receiving what we have to say. And so it gave us more opportunities to kind of work Christ into the conversation and give a different perspective, because I think Christians and Muslims have this idea of each other that isn't really good. And so we were able, like, not only for everybody in our team, we had our perception shifted on Muslims and Syrians in general, but they also had their perception of us changed as well, which was really, really cool. And so, almost every night our team got invited, and so we wanted to return the favor by inviting them. There were 3 main families that lived in the buildings that were near us. That those were the families that we were interacting most with, because we saw them every day. And so 2 of the families were related. The 2 dads in the families were brothers, and they had come to from Syria because of the bombing in their village. And then the other family, I'm not sure how long they had been in Lebanon, but they were a little bit more quiet and reserved, and our contact there said that they could never get them to like allow their kids to come to kids club with previous teams that had come. So it was a pretty big deal that we were able to get. Their kids were like open with us. They loved us. They wanted to hang out with us all the time. And on the top floor, which was where our families were staying in that apartment complex, and so right across was where that family was staying. And so during quarantine, that's when we were able to like wave and like talk to the kids like across like the little balcony thing, and so create that that relationship. And so we invited these families over to have dinner at our house because we wanted to reciprocate, and we knew that it was a lot because these families don't have a lot of money with the economic crisis and everything. We come to find out that one of the families, they were borrowing money from a friend, like from a family friend or a family member, in order to make the food to host us. And hospitality is like a huge thing in this culture, so it was really, really, really cool experience. And so the night that we had, the two families that were related came over. They ended up inviting their other brothers that lived in Lebanon, and so we had like all these people that we didn't really know all the way, and the few that we did, and we were able to talk with them through Google Translate, which pretty much carried us the entire time, because Arabic's a very hard language, and English for them is very hard too. It's completely different dialects. And so, through Google Translate, one of the brothers stood up and said that they had never gotten invited into a Christian home or into an American home, and that they viewed us as family. And so it was really, really cool. And one of the dads that was in the main families that we were seeing every day, every single time we saw him, he was saying, "You are my sister, you are my brother," and like all this stuff saying, "You come back," and we go to Syria, because he wanted to show us his village where they were from and everything. And it was just a really sweet time. And so the last ministry day, we told the kids, "Hey, invite your family, invite your friends. We're gonna do a big dinner, kind of going away party, because it was our last time that we were gonna be able to hang out with them." And they did. We ended up having over 50 Muslims in our courtyard outside of our apartment. Like half of them we had never seen before. They had just invited everybody they knew, and so we had all these Muslim families and kids in our courtyard, and we had gotten a translator through our main contact. We were able to have like a translator that could like verbally talk to us, because Google Translate doesn't always get it right. All the times there's some things that get lost in translation there. But a team member that on my team, Josh, he was able to share the gospel with all 50 Muslims, and they were quiet, they were listening, and it was really big deal. And so after that happened, and we were hanging out with the kids, all the girls were crying, and the boys were making fun of the girls for crying. And then all of us were like, "Oh no, this is so sad." We were all like feeling sad because we get to hang out with these kids every single day, more so than the other ministries, because they lived with us. They lived like right where we lived, so we were seeing them all the time. And so we were all like sad and crying. And then Leah, she's a little girl, I think she was about 13. She had been coming to Kids Club the whole time. She was one of the ones that knew a little bit more English, so she was helping translate like during Kids Club and everything. And she accepted Christ. So that was a really, really cool thing, because she comes from a Muslim family, but the parents seemed pretty open. They had enrolled them into like a Catholic school, so they seemed pretty open with different religions and stuff. So they seemed like they would be okay with whatever their children choose to follow. But they were a Muslim family, and so through that, we're hoping to see all the seeds that were planted continue to be watered through Leah. And she friended like all of us on Facebook, so she can contact us whenever she wants, and we can continue like discipling her and just answering any questions that she might have. And so that was like probably the highlight of the whole trip, was little Leah accepting Christ and everything. And Lebanon as a whole, it changed everyone on our team, and none of us had, I don't think, experienced the Middle East. And really, the one girl that had gone to Israel, and so it's completely different. Lebanon hates Israel, Israel hates Lebanon, so there's a tension there. So it's a completely different experience. And it was crazy to see God plant seeds and water the ones that had previously been planted, and like the Catholic Christians that were there, that we were able to like give food to and stuff, to see God move through literally everything He did. And looking back on it, we can see where like God had moved that we might not have realized it, and just really everyone we walked past. We were Americans, we stuck out like a sore thumb. So they were like wanting to know like who we were and what we were doing. And although we couldn't be we couldn't be like overly open that we are like Christians and we were here like as missionaries. It's obvious that we're not Muslim, and so if you're not Muslim, there you're probably like Catholic or Christian or something. So like they knew, but everybody was like very open to like speaking to us, and we're excited because we're Americans. They were taking pictures of us as we were walking down the street and wanting to take pictures with us. It was a little bit different, but it was a really cool experience. I have a video that we played out of graduation. After every graduation, most of the teams will put together a video that has like pictures and like maybe a few short videos that kind of shows an overview of our time on outreach. So I have that to share with you guys, and so you can put some faces together to the people that we were hanging out with and everything. But yeah, so.
Did you shut the light off there? So
This one is.
Dreams, come my way, awaken holy fire. We are turning from our sin. We are praying once again. Come my way, awaken holy fire. We are aching for the real thing. Hearts are open. Burn like a starlight of fire in our hearts. Burn like a starlight of fire in our hearts. Burn like a starlight of fire in our hearts. Burn like a starlight of fire in our hearts. Send revival start in us. Set your holy spark in us. Send us out in resurrection power. History's about to change. We are rising ones.
So yeah, that's kind of an overview of our time in Lebanon. And so now as my grandma said, I'm planning to go back on staff with Wyoming Tyler as a full-time missionary. And that leaves me raising monthly support, so please pray with me that God will provide and these monthly support and partners that I need, so I'll be able to like keep going wherever He decides to send me and do whatever He wants to do with me, so I can bring help. He can use me to bring people closer to Him, because that's all that matters at the end of the day. But yeah, thank you.